Hi. My name's Jen. I'll be your hostess for this screening. If you'd like to order an hors d'oeuvre or a cocktail. Actually, welcome to the Los Angeles Film Festival, presented by Film Independent. And thank you to our presenting media sponsor, the Los Angeles Times, and our host venue, the Regal Cinemas. And thank you so much to all of our volunteers at the festival. Yeah, thank you. And welcome to the screening of We Came Together, directed by David Wayne. And please welcome David Wayne.
Hi everybody, how are you doing? I said hi everybody, how you doing?
Yeah!
That's more like it. That's a lot. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. This is very exciting. This is the West Coast premiere of the movie. And Los Angeles people, many Angelinos worked very hard on this, and I think we probably came up with the idea when we were here in this town. And we shot a little bit of it here, but more importantly, though, is that we, just to understand one thing before we watch, and then afterwards we're going to have a Q&A, so please hang out for that if you like. We'll talk, we're going to have some of the cast people here, and it'll be really fun. And we can talk about the movie or whatever you want. The one thing to understand before, just to make it clear, is there's two main characters in the movie, played by Amy Poehler, and another one is Paul Rudd. But there is a third character that is almost could share equal billing, as far as I'm concerned, and that character is New York City. Yes, this movie was shot in New York City, and it's about New York City, and in some ways, New York City is almost like another character in the movie. But I mean, not to, I know you're laughing, etc., but just to say, it's all, another way of putting it is in a sense, New York City plays such an important role in the story that it's almost like another character. That's what New York City is. Thank you, that's very good. Is definitely kind of is the word I was looking for. So thank you for that, and that's it. And just so glad to be here. And thank you for the festival for hosting this tonight. This is great. Thank you. I will try to project. Hello. Oh, there we go. Can I bring up the collaborators? The producer and co-writer of the film, Michael Showalter.
Yeah! Woo!
Is here. And I'd also like to bring up cast members who are here. Max Greenfield, Michaela Watkins, and Zandy Hartig. Point out, if you'll stand up and wave, the composer of the movie is here, Craig Wedren, somewhere. And am I missing anybody else who's who? Matt Novak, the other composer of the movie. Where is he? Wonderful. Wonderful. And there's Michael, and there's Zandy, and there's Max. And anyway. Michaela's probably here somewhere. There she is. All right, sorry.
Okay. Well, talk a little about, making a romantic comedy that completely sends up the romantic comedy is a great idea and tricky to pull off. What inspired you to do this?
Well, I think I think Michael might be shy. I'm not sure. We made our first movie together. Wet Hot American Summer came out in 2000. And then we came out here here to Los Angeles looking for the pot of gold, and we originally pitched this idea to a studio and wrote it for a studio, and it didn't get made. But it was probably slightly more in the, or we were thinking we were doing our version of a scary movie, but for romantic comedies. But we realized that when we write something, it's a little kookier in a different way.
How long ago was that? I mean, how long has this been in the?
That was in 2002 we started that.
Wow.
But then we tried to get it made, and one of the stories is that we tried to get, after the studio put it in turnaround, then we tried to make it in different ways at lower budgets. And one financier that was almost ready to pull the trigger at the last minute, the 11th hour, watched our first movie, Wet Hot American Summer, and determined that we don't know how to do anything funny, and pulled the plug on the whole project. And in fact, he set up a test screening to prove to us that it wasn't funny. It was crazy.
Does he still have a job?
I don't even know.
Wow. Were there certain, I mean,
Steven Spielberg was his name.
have you revised it much as more, I mean, because there's fairly recent romantic comedies that you spoofed in this. I mean, has it changed much over
Yeah, well, we actually took all of the, I don't know if you said this already, but we took a lot, we actually had in the original draft, we had lots of, you know, more recognizable, oh, that's a scene from, we had the You Complete Me, and we had, you know, the Jerry Maguire moment where he takes her, I'll go with you, Jerry. We had the I'll have what she's having. We had all those moments in our original draft.
Yeah.
We took all those out. And we actually more went for something that was more in the vein of a Mel Brooks spoof, where we're really setting up the genre without pointing out specific, without going, this is going to be all about making fun of scenes from movies that you specifically recognize. There's a few specific references in there, but for the most part, we're more just trying to set up the genre as a whole.
Right. Well, the candy store is obviously like the bookstore and the
Yes,
store.
and there is actually that scene at the end where he says, I'm gonna go start my own coffee shop, and she says, I'll go with you, and he says, no thanks, I got it. But we actually, if anything, we took those things out.
Somebody had mentioned to me in another interview that there was this other movie called Date Movie that came out, which kind of was the spoofing a similar genre, but in that other slightly different subgenre of spoof. And I just watched it, or some of it, the other day for the first time, and I realized it is just a totally different approach. No value judgment, but it was like, that was more just like, here's somebody dressed up as the character from that recent movie, and see, and then it's just different. Really also terrific too.
Yeah. Did you?
The movies that I think we loved and wanted to have always is in the back of our minds is more something in the vein of an Airplane or a Blazing Saddles or a Young Frankenstein. And again, it's like, it's more about the gags and then the genre.
Yeah. Well, the ride up his ass is pure Mel Brooks.
That's right, yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience, who are very shy. Here we go.
I'm just curious, what exactly did you shoot it on?
Camera. It was shot at, what kind of camera is that? It was Alexa, digital. It was shot by a DP named Tom Houghton in New York, who had done Rescue Me and a bunch of other millions of things over the years. The area Alexa.
Are you guys gonna do a Wet Hot prequel or sequel?
Why did you look over to your?
I just elbowed my girlfriend.
You're like, watch me. I'm mid asking this question. Watch what happens. It's like this. For those who aren't seeing from my point of view, he's like, are you guys gonna do a Wet Hot sequel? Yes, we're working on that. It's happening. It's gonna happen. Prequel.
Can you talk about how much of the movie is from the script and how much was improvised and lived?
How much was improvised? How much was...
Possibly less than it might seem, because this was probably for adjusted dollars the lowest budget movie I've been involved in, and was very quick 23-day shoot, and mostly we had to go extremely fast, and also what we were doing has a little bit more of a written quality than maybe a more improvisational thing. But we also had Amy and Paul, an amazing comic talent that did improvise and did have a chance at points to go off script. But what would you say?
Yeah, I agree.
Max, how did you feel? Did you have a chance? Did you feel like you had a chance to improvise?
I was scolded every time. And after the first day, I get it, I'll just stick to it. I screwed up, I was scolded again.
Sandy, was your experience similar?
Mine was all improvised.
Oh, interesting.
Did you have Amy and Paul in mind?
No, they weren't even born yet, I don't think. But this version of it came about when Zandy over there and Michael were doing a project together, and I guess got to talking about it, right? And then Zandy asked me about it, and then we pulled out the script, and we're just reading it, this old script, and we're just laughing. And that inspired us doing a stage reading of it just for fun. Just not a stage reading, just a table read of it at a sketch comedy festival. And that went over so well, and it got Amy and Paul excited, and we ended up doing it.
They are great. Yes.
Were any of the cast attached at the beginning, the original draft of the script?
No, nobody was really attached at that point. I'd love to elaborate on that. There's not much more to say.
How did you go about casting the third main character?
You know, I don't know if that was like a, maybe, and it's funny, it was like a jokey maybe question, but in all seriousness, for us, New York City was so much, there couldn't have been any other city, because New York City is so intrinsic to the story we were trying to tell that in some ways it's almost like another character in the movie. So, is it funny that you, interesting to point that out?
Yeah.
Have you worked with New York before?
Have you worked with New York before?
Yes. That, you know, sort of an antecedent or a companion piece of this is Michael's movie, The Baxter, which is also a riff on the romantic comedy genre in a different way. It's also shot in Brooklyn, which is, we shot this almost entirely in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Were there any more like tropes or just typical things you wanted to throw in there, making fun of the genre that you didn't get to put in there?
You handed the mic to me with such confidence, like you knew I was going to have an answer to this. You mean, were there other, basically like you just saying, were there other tropes that we thought of jokes for that aren't in the movie?
Yeah, beyond what you were saying earlier, not just the direct spoofs of movies, but just the stereotypical breaking up, getting back together type
Well,
thing.
there's like an hour's worth of deleted footage that's going to be on the Blu-ray or something. We did a big song, like in the candy shop, there's a scene where after she gets dumped and she's all of a sudden joined by four women and they start singing like an Aretha Franklin song.
Yes.
You know, there's the like so that's like the woman power song scene. What else? What other were some of the other like big deleted? Well, yeah, but that.
One favorite deleted scene is that Paul Rudd gets up to go meet his grandmother, and he, yeah.
This actually goes to something that we've done that we get criticized for as not being funny, which is very banal dialogue. It's actually something that we think is really funny, that a lot of people, by people I mean people who review the movie or say things about the movie, see it as just really banal dialogue. But in the era that we grew up watching movies, there was this sort of weird cadence that these movies had, which you understand where I'm going with this because it bleeds into the story you're about to tell, which is okay. Well, so like for example, in this scene David's talking about, there's a scene where Paul's character leaves his apartment, and there's a female construction worker who's like, "Hey, baby." After she says, I think it's after she says it, right? No. She's like, hey, baby, those are the nicest buns I ever seen. And then he looks down and he realizes he's not wearing pants.
Then we reveal that she's actually referring to a baker that's standing right next to Paul Rudd carrying a tray of buns. And the baker says, merci beaucoup. And then the baker turns around and he's not wearing pants. And he has his ass showing his buns. That's got cut from the, believe it or not.
It'll be on the DVD.
It will be on the, if there still exists such thing, yes.
The Blu-ray. Yes.
Question for Max. Did you look to any over cliche Big Brother, Little Brother screen roles for inspiration?
I don't know. I think I just kind of took the lead. It was so evident in the writing. It was just like I think especially that one big scene with Paul, we rehearsed that once and it worked so well, and that was, I mean, we shot that probably within 4 hours, and it was probably the most fun 4 hours I'll ever have on a movie set. Well, the TV, what a joy that experience is. It doesn't compare.
Any more questions? Yeah, up there.
So you said you talked to the cast of main characters after reading a sketch comedy, but how did you decide some of the, the other characters? How did you pull from lots of great talent? How did you know the chemistry would work for the film? Did you have these people in mind after you casted Rudd and Amy, or did you just decide through casting or through friends, or how did you go about casting everyone else? Because it meshed so well. Nepotism.
It was as it's always kind of been, it's a combination of just picking people that we've worked with a lot over the years and putting them in roles that they seem right for, and then meeting new people or thinking of new people like that we hadn't worked with before but seemed would be exciting to try for the role, like Kobe Smulders, and then in other cases just regular auditioning and learning about people through that process. And the mixture, just like any casting process for any kind of movie, I guess, just a combination of gut and talking about it and trying people out together. But I think the chemistry of everybody emanates from the chemistry between Amy and Paul, which is so developed and awesome, and they have such a great rapport that they set the tone for everybody else.
And New York.
And New York. Sorry, I opened that can of worms.
What was the hardest scene to shoot and why?
I think one of the hardest ones was the one that Zandy was in, because it was one of the first days of the shoot and we hadn't figured out a proper way of air conditioning things. And the house that we were shooting in had to be 105 degrees. And you can see if you watch that scene carefully, everyone's dripping. And it was really hard. And I think, Zandy, were you like about to pass out?
I was about to pass out, and the makeup person was like, I don't know what to do. I can't make you look better.
But it was a lot of the classic production stuff of doing a very low budget movie and running around New York and trying to race against time and race against budget, but all the normal stuff.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Yeah.
How many takes did it take to do the part where they hook up and they knock over everything?
Oh, that's interesting.
How many takes?
So the question was, how many takes to do the scene where they kiss and knock over all the stuff in the house? When we got to the end of that day, we hadn't shot that yet, and basically our team was basically like, just forget it, it's not going to happen, and it's probably not that funny anyway. And I had it set up to do that scene in a number of setups, like maybe 6 or 7 different shots. But we decided with basically 5 minutes left, just do it all in one shot and do it in one take. And that's all, there's literally only one take of that.
What?
And they were like, do you want to try to set it up and go into overtime and get to the take? And I'm like, I think you probably got it. But I know in Wet Hot American Summer, the same thing. There's a number of scenes that were done in one take, where we just had to be like, hopefully it will come out on film.
It works. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to vote.
Michael, Matt,